My name is Ava. I am 26 years old and I live in the United States. My father didn't even put down his fork when he destroyed my dream. We were sitting at the usual Sunday dinner table, the smell of roast chicken filling the air. It felt like any other weekend, until he wiped his mouth with a napkin and looked at me with bored eyes. Ava, we need to talk about the wedding money, he said casually. We gave your fund to Brianna. She deserves a royal wedding. The room went silent for a second, and then my mother chuckled. My sister, Brianna, smirked and took a sip of her wine. They laughed like it was a harmless joke. They expected me to just nod and accept it like I always did. I felt cold, like all the blood had drained out of my body. I couldn't speak. I couldn't breathe. But the person next to me didn't laugh. Marcus, my fiancé, went perfectly still. His hand tightened around his water glass until his knuckles turned white. My family thought he was just a quiet, simple man. They had no idea who he really was, or what he was about to do. But before I tell you how everything flipped, like and subscribe, drop a comment. Where are you watching from? My name is Ava. I am 26 years old. I learned the word fine very early in my life. It was a shield, it was a label, it was a curse. Ava is fine, my mother would say to her friends on the phone. She's so independent. But Brianna, oh, Brianna is going through such a hard time right now because she didn't get the lead role in the play. I grew up in a house that was always loud, but my voice was never the one making the noise. I was the shadow in the hallway. I was the extra plate at the table. My sister, Brianna, was the sun, and my parents were the planets orbiting around her. Brianna was 2 years younger than me. From the moment she was born, she was labeled sensitive. If she cried, the whole house stopped. If she wanted a toy, she got it because she just feels things so deeply. My parents told me I had to be the big girl. I had to be the strong one. You're self-sufficient, Ava, my dad would say, patting my shoulder absently while looking over my head at Brianna. You don't need us hovering. They turned their neglect into a compliment. They made me feel like my loneliness was a badge of honor. I remember my 16th birthday clearly. I had asked for a small dinner, just us, at my favorite Italian restaurant. I had been looking forward to it for weeks. I put on a nice dress. I curled my hair. I sat in the living room waiting. 5 o'clock came, then 6, then 7. Finally, the front door opened. My mom walked in, looking exhausted, carrying shopping bags. My dad followed, carrying Brianna, who was sobbing. What happened? I asked, standing up. Brianna had a crisis, Mom said, not even looking at me. Her boyfriend didn't text her back all afternoon. We had to take her shopping to calm her down. She was inconsolable, Ava, absolutely inconsolable. But it's my birthday, I whispered. Mom stopped and looked at me with genuine annoyance. Ava, please, not now. Can't you see your sister is hurting? We can order a pizza later. You're fine, you're always fine. I went to my room and took off the dress. I ate a granola bar for dinner. I didn't cry. I had learned a long time ago that crying in this house was a competition, and Brianna always won. It was the same when I got into college. I worked 3 jobs in high school to save up for books. When I got my acceptance letter to the state university, I ran into the kitchen to show them. That's nice, honey, Dad said, barely glancing up from his newspaper. Make sure you figure out your loans. Money is tight right now. 2 months later, they bought Brianna a brand new convertible because she needed a pick-me-up after failing her driving test the first time. I moved out the day after graduation. I packed my life into 2 suitcases and a cardboard box. My parents didn't help me load the car. They were too busy helping Brianna decide what color to paint her bedroom now that she had the whole upstairs to herself. For the next 4 years, I built a life alone. I worked as a barista, a receptionist, and a tutor. I studied late into the night. I paid every single bill myself. I never asked them for a dime because I knew the answer would be no. But there was one thing my grandmother had left me. Before she passed away, she set up a small wedding fund for me. She told my parents specifically, "This is for Ava, for her special day." It was the one thing I held onto. It wasn't about the money. It was the proof that someone in my family had actually seen me. Someone had thought about my future. I knew the money was in an account my father managed, and I trusted him to keep it safe. It was my safety net, my little promise of happiness. I didn't visit home often. When I did, it was always the same. Brianna talking about her latest drama, a breakup, a job she quit after 2 days, a trip she wanted to take. My parents nodding and soothing her, me sitting in the corner, drinking water invisible. "You're so lucky, Ava," my mom would say, looking at my tired eyes. "You just glide through life, no drama. You don't know how hard it is for someone fragile like Brianna." I wasn't gliding. I was climbing a mountain with no ropes, but they never looked up long enough to see I met Marcus on a rainy Tuesday evening. I was 24, exhausted, and worried about my rent. I had gone to a free financial planning workshop at the community library. I wasn't there to learn how to invest millions. I was there to learn how to make my meager paycheck stretch a little further. I was sitting in the back row, shaking water off my umbrella, when a man sat down next to me. He was wearing a faded flannel shirt and jeans that looked like they had been washed 100 times. He had scruffy dark hair and tired eyes. He looked like he had just come from a long shift at a construction site or a warehouse. He smiled at me. It was a shy, crooked smile. "Wet out there," he said. "Pouring," I replied. "I hope this class is worth the walk." "I hope so too," he said softly. "I'm Marcus." "Ava," we started talking. It was effortless. For the first time in my life, I wasn't talking to someone who wanted something from me or someone who wanted to talk about themselves. He asked me questions. Real questions. "What do you do for work?" he asked. "I'm a junior graphic designer," I said, "but I'm working at a coffee shop on weekends to make ends meet." He didn't judge me. He didn't look at my cheap shoes or my worn-out coat. He just nodded with respect. "That's hard work," he said. "You must be disciplined." After the workshop, he asked if I wanted to get coffee. We went to a diner around the corner. We sat in a vinyl booth for 3 hours, drinking bad coffee and talking about everything. He told me he grew up in the city, that he liked simple things, that he wasn't close with his family either. He listened to me talk about Brianna and my parents. He didn't interrupt. He didn't tell me to get over it. He just listened, his brown eyes focused entirely on my face. "That sounds lonely," he said after I told him about my 16th birthday. I felt a lump in my throat. "It is. I'm used to it though." "You shouldn't have to be used to it," he said. We started dating. It was a slow, quiet romance. We didn't go to fancy restaurants. We went for walks in the park. We cooked pasta in my tiny apartment. We rented movies and ate popcorn. I fell in love with his simplicity. Marcus was humble. He drove an old sedan that rattled when it went over 60 miles per hour. He never wore flashy clothes. He was careful with money, just like me. I decided not to tell my family about him for a long time. I was terrified. I knew what they would do. If they met him, they would judge him. My mother would look at his flannel shirt and wrinkle her nose. My father would ask him what he did for a living and then dismiss him if the answer wasn't impressive enough. Brianna would probably make fun of his car. Or worse, they would try to ruin it. They would tell him I was cold or boring. They would try to pull him into their drama. I wanted to keep Marcus pure. I wanted one thing in my life that didn't have their fingerprints all over it. So for 6 months, he was my secret. He was my sanctuary. When I was with him, I wasn't the invisible daughter. I was Ava. I was important. One night, lying on a blanket in the park looking at the stars, Marcus turned to me. "You know I love you, right?" he asked. "I know," I said. "I love you too, even if we're both broke." He laughed, a deep, warm sound. "Yeah, even if we're broke." I didn't care about money. I had grown up seeing how money was used as a weapon in my family, to control, to spoil, to silence. With Marcus, I had peace. That was worth more than anything my parents had ever given. Brianna. We had been together for almost a year when I found out the truth. It was a Saturday morning. We were at Marcus's apartment. His place was nice but modest. Clean, modern, but nothing extravagant. It fit him. He was in the shower, and I was looking for a pen to write down a grocery list. I opened the top drawer of his desk. There was no pen, but there was a magazine. It wasn't a normal magazine. It was a tech business journal. And right there on the cover was a face I knew better than my own. It was Marcus. He was wearing a suit in the photo, something I had never seen him wear. He looked sharp, commanding. The headline read, "The Quiet Disruptor, How Marcus Thorne Built a $50 million Fintech Empire from His Living Room." I froze. My hands started shaking. I pulled the magazine out and stared at it. 50 million, I looked around the room, the IKEA furniture, the old TV, the worn-out rug. None of it made sense. The bathroom door opened, and Marcus walked out, drying his hair with a towel. He saw me standing there, holding the magazine. He stopped dead in his tracks. "Ava," he said, his voice dropping. "Is this real?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Is this you?" He let out a long sigh and walked over to me. He took the magazine from my hands and set it on the desk. Yes, he said. It's me. I don't understand, I said, backing away slightly. You drive a beat-up car, we eat at diners. You told me you worked in software. You didn't say you owned the company. You didn't say you were rich. I know, he said. He looked terrified. For the first time, the calm, steady man I knew looked scared of losing me. Please, let me explain. Why did you lie to me? I felt a different kind of betrayal. I was so used to people hiding things from me. I didn't lie about who I am, Marcus said earnestly, grabbing my hands. Ava, listen to me. In my world, people only want me for my wallet. Women date me because they want the lifestyle. Friends call me because they want a loan. I was so tired of it. I wanted to meet someone who didn't know. Someone who would fall in love with me, not the bank account. He looked into my eyes, pleading. When I met you at that workshop, you were so real. You were working so hard. You didn't care about status. You treated me like a human being. I was afraid if I told you, things would change. I was afraid you'd treat me differently. I looked at him. I thought about the last year, the way he held me when I was sad, the way he listened to my stories about work, the way he made me tea. None of that had cost money. That was just him. I don't care about the money, Marcus, I said softly. I know, he smiled, relief washing over his face. That's why I love you. That's why I'm going to marry you. If you'll have me. He got down on one knee right there in the living room, wearing his sweatpants and a t-shirt. He pulled a ring out of his pocket. It wasn't flashy, but it was beautiful. Ava, I have everything in the world, but I have nothing without you. Will you marry me? I cried. Yes. We agreed to keep his secret a little longer. I wasn't ready to unleash my family on him yet. I knew exactly how they would react if they knew he was a multimillionaire. They would turn into sharks smelling blood in the water. Let them think I'm just a regular guy, Marcus said. I want to see how they treat us when they think we have nothing. I didn't know then how wise that decision was. I didn't know that his anonymity would be the only weapon we had. When the storm finally hit 2 months after the engagement, we went to my parents' house for Sunday dinner. I had a knot in my stomach the entire drive there. I always did. Going home felt like walking into a cage where I had to make myself small to survive. It's going to be okay, Marcus said, squeezing my hand. I'm right here. When we walked in, the house smelled of roast chicken and expensive perfume. Brianna was lounging on the sofa, scrolling through her phone. She didn't get up to greet us. Hey, she said without looking up. My mother came out of the kitchen, wiping her hands on an apron. Oh, you're here. Good, dinner is almost ready. Ava, set the table. I did as I was told. I fell back into the old rhythm, the servant, the helper. Marcus tried to help me, but my dad waved him off. Sit down, Marcus, Dad said, pouring himself a scotch. Let the women handle it. Marcus sat, his jaw tightening slightly, but he didn't say anything. We sat down to eat. The conversation, as always, was about Brianna. She was talking about a new modeling class she wanted to take, and how she needed a new wardrobe for it. We'll sort it out, sweetie, Mom cooed. Then, the mood shifted. My father cleared his throat. He put his fork down and looked at me. It was a look I knew well, dismissive, cold, and practical. Ava, he said, we need to talk about your wedding. I perked up. I smiled, actually. I thought he was finally going to ask about my plans. Oh, yes, we were thinking about a small venue in… No, he interrupted. We need to talk about the fund, Grandma's fund. Right, I said. We're going to need that soon for the deposits. Marcus and I are trying to keep it simple, but that money will really help us getting started. My mother took a sip of her wine and looked away. Brianna smirked and stabbed a piece of potato with her fork. Well, Dad said, that's the thing, the money isn't there anymore. I froze. What do you mean? We had to move some assets around, Dad said casually, as if he was talking about the weather. Brianna has been having a hard year. She's really struggled to find herself. She deserves a win. She met a nice guy last week, and she thinks he might be the one. She wants a royal wedding theme when the time comes. It's going to be expensive. I stared at him. I don't understand. You gave my wedding fund to Brianna, for a wedding she isn't even having yet, to a guy she met a week ago. She needs the security, Ava, Mom snapped. She needs to know the money is there for her. It gives her confidence. But that was Grandma's money, I said, my voice shaking. She left it for me, specifically for me. We're the trustees, Dad said, shrugging. We decided it was better used elsewhere. Look, Ava, you're doing fine. You always manage. You and Marcus, well, you're simple people. You don't need a big flashy day. You can just go to the courthouse. It fits you better. The cruelty of it took my breath away. It wasn't just about the money. It was the message. You don't matter. Your happiness is less important than Brianna's whims. You are expected to survive on scraps while she feasts. I looked at Brianna. She was grinning. It was a malicious, triumphant grin. She loved this. She loved knowing that even my wedding, my one special moment, was being cannibalized to feed her ego. It's really for the best, Ava, Brianna said, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. I have such expensive taste. You're so plain, you wouldn't even know how to spend that much money. I felt tears pricking my eyes. I looked at my parents, waiting for them to say they were kidding, waiting for them to see how much they were hurting me, but they just went back to eating their chicken. You'll be fine, Dad said, chewing. You always figure it out. I felt a cracking sensation in my chest. This was it. This was the moment I realized that no matter what I did, no matter how good I was, no matter how hard I worked, I would never be enough for them. They would always steal from me to give to her. I opened my mouth to speak, but nothing came out. I was drowning in 26 years of silence. But then, the chair next to me scraped loudly against the floor. Marcus stood up. He didn't look like the quiet, flannel-wearing man anymore. He stood tall, his shoulders broad, his face hard as stone. The air in the room seemed to change. The temperature dropped. He looked at my father. Then he looked at my mother. Finally, he looked at Brianna. You think she's plain, Marcus said. His voice was low, but it carried a weight that made my father stop chewing. Excuse me, Dad said, looking annoyed. Sit down, son. This is a family matter. You made it my matter when you stole from my fiancé, Marcus said. Stole is a strong word, Mom huffed. It's family money. It was her money, Marcus said, his voice rising just a fraction, sharp as a whip. And you took it because you think she's weak. You think she won't fight back. You think she's just the easy one who will take whatever garbage you throw at her. My parents looked confused. They weren't used to anyone challenging them, especially not the broke boyfriend. We're done here, Dad said, waving his hand dismissively. Ava, tell your boyfriend to calm down or leave. Marcus reached into his pocket. I thought he was reaching for his keys to leave. But he wasn't. He pulled out his phone. He tapped the screen a few times and then tossed the phone onto the center of the table. It slid across the wood and stopped right in front of my father. Look at it, Marcus commanded. Dad frowned, confused. He looked down at the screen. Then his face went pale, completely white. His mouth fell open. What is this? Dad whispered. That, Marcus said, is the balance of my current checking account, and the one below it is the acquisition offer I just accepted for my company. Brianna leaned over to look. Her eyes widened. She gasped. Is that millions? She squeaked. Marcus didn't look at her. He kept his eyes locked on my father. I'm not a simple man, Robert. I'm the founder of Thorn Financial. I could buy this house 10 times over and turn it into a parking lot without blinking. The silence in the room was deafening. My mother dropped her fork. It clattered loudly against the china. I kept my identity a secret because I wanted to see who you people really were, Marcus said, his voice cold and disgusted. And now I know. You are greedy, selfish, small people who treat a wonderful woman like dirt. He leaned forward, placing his hands on the table. You have 24 hours to return every single cent of Ava's trust fund. If you don't, I will unleash a team of lawyers on you that will make your head spin. I will audit every financial move you've made in the last 20 years. And I promise you, I will find something. My father was trembling. Sweat broke out on his forehead. He knew he couldn't win this fight. Now, Marcus said, straightening up and holding out his hand to me. Ava, let's go. We have a wedding to plan. A real one. The silence in the dining room was heavy. It felt like the air had been sucked out of the space. My father was still staring at the phone screen, his face draining of all color. My mother was frozen, her fork halfway to her mouth, looking between Marcus and my father with wide, fearful eyes. And Brianna, her smirk was gone. Her mouth was slightly open, her eyes darting back and forth as she tried to process what she had just heard. Marcus didn't move. He stood there like a statue, his hand still extended to me. But before I could take it, my father made a sound. It was a strangled, desperate noise. Wait, Dad croaked. He looked up at Marcus, and for the first time in my entire life I saw fear in his eyes, not anger, not disappointment. Fear. Marcus, son, hold on a minute. I'm not your son, Marcus said. His voice was so calm, so steady, it was terrifying. And we're not holding on, we're leaving. No, please, Mom stood up, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. She rushed around the table, her hands fluttering nervously. Let's not be hasty. We're family, we can talk about this. There must be a misunderstanding. There is no misunderstanding, Marcus said. You stole from Ava. You treated her like she was invisible, you mocked her. And now that you know I have money, suddenly you want to talk. It's not about the money, Mom cried out, but her eyes kept flickering to the phone on the table. The phone that showed a balance with more zeros than she had ever seen. We didn't know you were established. Established? Marcus laughed. It was a cold, dry sound. Is that what you call it? If I was a construction worker, would you care? If I was a teacher, would you be stopping us right now? No, you'd be laughing at us while you handed Ava's money to Brianna. Brianna stood up now. She smoothed down her dress and flipped her hair. I watched her face change. The cruelty melted away, replaced by a fake, sickly sweetness. She walked around the table toward Marcus, ignoring me completely. Marcus, she purred, stepping into his personal space. Wow, you really hid that well. That's actually kind of hot. You know, I've always admired men who build things on their own. Maybe we got off on the wrong foot. She reached out to touch his arm. Marcus took a step back, looking at her like she was something rotten he had found in the fridge. Don't touch me, he said. Brianna froze, her hand in the air. Her face went red. I was just being friendly, she snapped, her mask slipping for a second. You weren't being friendly, Marcus said. You were being a predator. I've watched you for a year, Brianna. I've watched you demand things. I've watched you belittle your sister. I've watched you treat your parents like your personal ATM. You are a spoiled child. Brianna gasped. She looked at our parents, waiting for them to defend her. Daddy, are you going to let him talk to me like that? Usually, this was the part where Dad would slam his fist on the table and demand an apology. Usually, this was where I would be told to control my boyfriend. But Dad didn't say a word. He was still calculating. I could see the gears turning in his head. He was realizing that Marcus wasn't just rich, he was powerful. He was realizing that he had just insulted a man who could buy his entire company. Brianna, sit down, Dad muttered, not looking at her. What? Brianna screeched. Sit down, Dad yelled. Brianna sat, shocked. It was the first time he had ever raised his voice at her. Dad looked at Marcus, sweating. He put on a fake smile, a smile I had seen him use on clients he was trying to swindle. Marcus, look, we're businessmen. We understand leverage. You played your hand well, very impressive, but let's not blow this out of proportion. Ava is our daughter, we love her. The money thing, it was just a temporary allocation. We can fix it. You called her extra, Marcus said. You said she was fine while you robbed her. It was a joke, Mom chimed in, laughing nervously. We have a dry sense of humor in this family. Ava knows that. Right, Ava? You know we were just teasing. She turned to me. Her eyes were pleading. She wanted me to fix it. She wanted me to play my role, the peacemaker, the doormat. She wanted me to smooth everything over so they could get close to Marcus's money. I looked at my mother. I really looked at her. I saw the lines around her mouth from years of frowning at me. I saw the desperate greed in her eyes. I realized something in that moment. They didn't love me. They didn't even like me. They only tolerated me when I was useful, and they ignored me when I wasn't. And now, they were afraid of me. Or rather, they were afraid of the man standing next to me. I looked at Marcus. He wasn't looking at them. He was looking at me, waiting. He wasn't going to drag me out. He was giving me the space to make the choice. The power had shifted. For 26 years, I had been the beggar at the table. Now, I was the one holding the keys. It wasn't a joke, Mom, I said. My voice was quiet, but in the silent room, it sounded like a gunshot. Ava, honey, don't be like that, Mom said, stepping closer. We're family. Family forgives. Family doesn't steal, Marcus corrected her. We will put the money back, Dad said quickly. Tomorrow morning, first thing, I'll transfer it back to the trust account. Every penny plus interest, how about that? We'll add 5% interest. He was bargaining. He was trying to buy his way out of the shame. You'll return it because if you don't, I will destroy you legally, Marcus said. But that doesn't fix what you did. Marcus looked at me again. Ready? I nodded. Yes. Wait, Brianna yelled. You can't just leave, we haven't even had dessert. It was such a ridiculous thing to say. It showed just how disconnected she was from reality. I don't want dessert, I said. I want to go home. Marcus took my hand. His grip was warm and solid. We turned our backs on the table. We turned our backs on the roast chicken, the wine, and the 3 people who were supposed to be my safe harbor. As we walked toward the door, I heard my father scrambling up from his chair. Ava, wait. Let's schedule a lunch next week. Just you and me, we can talk business. I'd love to hear more about Marcus's company. Maybe there are synergies. He was already trying to network. He was already trying to figure out how to use me to get to Marcus. I didn't stop. I opened the front door and walked out into the cool night air. We walked to the car in silence. It wasn't an awkward silence. It was the kind of silence that happens after a bomb goes off, when the ringing in your ears is the only thing you can hear. Marcus opened the car door for me. I slid into the passenger seat of his beat-up sedan. It felt different now. Before, it was just an old car. Now, it was a disguise. It was a symbol of how much he had protected us. He got in the driver's side and started the engine. He didn't drive away immediately. He just sat there, gripping the steering wheel, looking straight ahead. "Are you okay?" he asked. I took a deep breath. My hands were shaking. "I don't know." "I'm sorry I had to do that," he said. "I didn't want to cause a scene. But when they said they took your money, I saw red." "Don't be sorry," I said. I turned to look at him. "You're the first person who has ever stood up for me. In my whole life, Marcus, the first one." He looked at me, his eyes soft. "They won't hurt you again, Ava, I promise." We drove home. The city lights blurred past the window. My mind was racing, replaying the last 20 years of my life. Every birthday forgotten. Every achievement ignored. Every time Brianna was chosen over me. I used to think it was my fault. I used to think if I was just smarter, or prettier, or louder, they would see me. I thought if I didn't need anything, they would love me for being easy. But tonight, the truth had hit me in the face. It wasn't about me. It was about them. They were broken. They were hollow. And they had been feeding off my silence to make themselves feel big. When we got back to our apartment, I didn't want to go to sleep. I felt wired. I felt like I had too much energy trapped inside my skin. I sat on the edge of the bed. Marcus sat next to me. "I need to tell them," I said suddenly. "Tell them what?" Marcus asked. "I need to tell them that I'm done. It was a shock, but I didn't say enough, I just left. If I don't say it, they'll think they can wiggle back in. They'll think this will blow over like everything else." My phone buzzed. It was a text from Mom. "Ava, please call. Daddy is very upset. We need to fix this. We love you." Then another buzz, Brianna. "Are you seriously dating a multimillionaire and you didn't tell me? That is so selfish, Ava. I could have introduced him to so many people. Call me." They weren't sorry. They were panicking. I stood up. I paced around the small bedroom. "I'm not calling them," I said. "I'm not going to give them the satisfaction of a conversation where they can interrupt me and gaslight me." "Write it down," Marcus suggested. "Get it out of your system." I shook my head. "No. They need to hear my voice, but I don't want to hear theirs." I picked up my phone. I dialed my father's number. It rang once and he picked up immediately. "Ava, thank God. Look, sweetheart, we were just talking and—" "Stop," I said. I didn't shout. I didn't scream. I spoke in a voice I barely recognized. It was low, steady, and hard as steel. "Don't speak, just listen. If you interrupt me, I hang up and you never hear from me again." There was a stunned silence on the other end. "Okay," Dad whispered. "For 26 years, I have tried to be the perfect daughter," I said. "I made myself small so there would be more room for Brianna. I asked for nothing. I solved my own problems. I paid my own bills. I thought that if I was good enough, if I was low maintenance enough, you would finally appreciate me." I took a breath. Marcus reached out and held my hand. "But I realized tonight that you don't want a daughter. You want an audience. You want a servant. You want a punching bag to make Brianna feel better about herself. You took my wedding fund not because you needed the money, but because you couldn't stand the idea of me having something that Brianna didn't." I heard my mother crying in the background, but it sounded fake, performative. I ignored it. "You called me fine. You said Ava is always fine. You used that word to dismiss me. You used it so you didn't have to do the hard work of being parents to 2 children. You just picked one and threw the other one away." "Ava, that's not true," Dad started. I said, "Don't speak." I snapped. He went silent. "I am not fine anymore, Dad. I am furious. And I am done. I am done competing for your love. I am done waiting for you to look at me. I have found a man who sees me, who cherishes me, who would burn the world down to protect me. I don't need your scraps anymore." Tears were running down my face, but my voice didn't waver. "Marcus demanded the money back, and you will send it. But once that transfer hits my account, I don't want you to contact me. I don't want texts. I don't want birthday cards. I don't want to hear about Brianna's latest crisis. I am cutting the cord." "Ava, you can't mean that," Dad pleaded, his voice shaking. "We're your parents." "You were my biological parents," I said. "But you haven't been my family for a long time. Goodbye." I hung up. I stared at the phone. My heart was pounding in my chest like a drum. I waited for the guilt to come. I had been trained to feel guilty whenever I upset them. I waited for the crushing weight of thinking I was a bad daughter. But it didn't come. Instead, I felt light. I felt like I had been carrying a backpack full of rocks for 20 years, and I had finally just dropped it on the side of the road. I looked at Marcus. He was smiling at me, a proud, beaming smile. "You did it," he said. "I did," I whispered. "I really did." I climbed into bed and pulled the covers up to my chin. For the first time in my life, I fell asleep without worrying about whether I was good enough. I knew I was. And that was all that mattered. The next week was a lesson in boundaries. Just because I had said goodbye didn't mean they were going to let me go easily. They were like a virus that couldn't survive without a host. The morning after the dinner, the money appeared in my account. It was the full amount, plus the 5% interest my father had promised in his panic. The transaction note just said, "For Ava, love, Dad." It was a transaction, a bribe. He thought if he sent the money, everything would go back to normal. Then the messages started. First it was Mom. She sent photos of me as a baby. "Look at this sweet angel. We love you so much, Ava. Please don't shut us out. We made a mistake." Then Brianna. "Hey, I'm sorry I was a brat. Can we get coffee? I really want to hear about Marcus. Does he have any single friends? LOL. Seriously though, call me." Then the flying monkeys came. My aunt, who I hadn't spoken to in 3 years, called me. "Ava, your mother is devastated. She hasn't stopped crying. You're being very cruel. They made a mistake with the money, but they fixed it. You can't destroy the family over money." It was exhausting. Every time my phone buzzed, I felt a spike of anxiety. "Block them," Marcus said on the third day. We were sitting at the kitchen table, eating breakfast. "I can't," I said. "What if there's an emergency?" "If there's a real emergency, the police will call you," Marcus said. "Right now, they are just manipulating you. They're love-bombing you because they're terrified of losing their access to you and to me." He was right. It wasn't love, it was panic. They realized they had bet on the wrong horse. They had spent their lives investing in Brianna, and she was a bottomless pit of need. I was the one who had made it. I was the one marrying a successful man. They wanted to be on the winning team. I picked up my phone. I went to my contacts. I clicked on Mom, block caller. I clicked on Dad, block caller. I clicked on Brianna, block caller. The silence that followed was beautiful. 2 days later, Marcus came home early from work. He had a strange look on his face. "What's wrong?" I asked. "Your father showed up at my office," he said. I gasped. "What? How did he get in?" "He tried to talk to the receptionist. He said he was my father-in-law. He tried to get a meeting." "Oh my God," I said, covering my face with my hands. "I am so mortified. What did you do?" "I had security escort him out," Marcus said simply. I looked at him. "You did?" "Yes. I told them he was harassing me and that he wasn't welcome on the premises. He made a bit of a scene in the lobby, yelling that I was stealing his daughter. But he left." Marcus sat down next to me and took my hands. "Ava, you have to understand something. We hold all the cards now. They can't hurt us. They can't take anything from us. You are safe." That weekend, we decided to get out of the city. We drove up to the coast. We rented a small cabin near the ocean. We turned our phones off. We walked on the beach in the wind. We cooked dinner together. We didn't talk about my family. We talked about us. "What do you want to do with the money?" Marcus asked. "The trust fund." I had been thinking about that. It was a lot of money. Enough for a huge wedding. Enough for a down payment on a house. "I don't want to spend it on us," I said. "That money feels tainted now. Every time I look at it, I think of how they gave it to Brianna. I think of how I had to fight to get it back. So what do we do?" "I want to use it for good," I said. "But first, I want to pay for the wedding myself. With my own savings. And yours if you want to chip in," Marcus laughed. "I think I can afford to chip in." "I want our wedding to be ours," I said. "Not grandma's money, not their money. Just us?" "I love that," Marcus said. Leaving the hurt behind wasn't a single moment. It was a daily choice. It was waking up every morning and choosing not to check my blocked messages. It was choosing not to wonder what they were saying about me. It was choosing to believe Marcus when he told me I was beautiful and important. It was hard work. But for the first time, I was working for myself, not for them. Planning the wedding was the most peaceful experience of my life. I had heard horror stories about wedding planning, mothers interfering, sisters demanding to be maid of honor, fights over the guest list. I had none of that. It was just me and Marcus. We sat on our living room floor with a bottle of wine and a notebook, making decisions in 5 minutes that would have taken my mother 5 months to agonize over. Cake, Marcus asked. Chocolate, I said. Done. Venue, outside, somewhere with trees. Vineyard in Napa, perfect. We kept the guest list small. 50 people. Just our close friends, some of Marcus's colleagues who were actually decent people, and a few of my distant cousins who had always been kind to me and didn't talk to my parents much. We didn't send an invitation to my parents. We didn't send one to Brianna. It felt strange writing the addresses and skipping over the people who gave me life. A little pang of sadness hit me, the mourning of the family I wished I had, not the one I actually had. But I pushed through it. The day of the wedding was a golden, sunny day in October. The vineyard was breathtaking. Rows of grapevines stretched out over the hills, turning red and orange with the autumn colors. The air smelled of earth and grapes. I got ready in a small cottage on the property. I didn't have a bridal party. No bridesmaids in matching dresses. Just my best friend from college, Sarah, helping me zip up my dress. The dress was simple. No sequins, no massive train, just sleek white silk that made me feel like a woman, not a princess. You look stunning, Sarah said, tearing up. You look free. I feel free, I said. As I walked toward the ceremony, I checked my phone one last time. I had unblocked them for the day, just in case of a true emergency, but I had silenced the notifications. There were texts. From Mom. I can't believe you're doing this today without us. I gave birth to you. This is a slap in the face. Everyone is asking where we are. I'm so embarrassed. She was embarrassed. That was her main emotion on my wedding day, not sadness that she missed it. Embarrassment that she couldn't show off. From Brianna, hope it rains. I laughed. I actually laughed out loud. It was so petty, so small. It couldn't touch me. I put the phone away and walked out into the sunlight. Marcus was standing under an old oak tree. When he saw me, his face broke into the biggest smile I had ever seen. He had tears in his eyes. I walked down the aisle alone. I didn't have my father to give me away. I didn't need him to give me away. I belonged to myself and I was giving myself to Marcus freely. When I reached him, he took my hands. Hi, he whispered. Hi, I whispered back. The ceremony was short and honest. We wrote our own vows. Ava, Marcus said, his voice thick with emotion. For a long time you walked through the world feeling invisible, but I promise you I will always see you. I will see your strength, your kindness, and your heart. You are the most important person in my world. When it was my turn, I looked at him and felt a wave of gratitude so strong it almost knocked me over. Marcus, you taught me that love isn't about earning your keep. You taught me that I am enough just as I am. I promise to build a home with you where kindness is the currency and where we never have to hide who we are. We kissed. The small crowd cheered. It was a sound of pure joy. No drama. No tension, just love. The reception was a dinner under the stars. We ate amazing food, drank wine, and danced on the grass. At one point, I looked around the table. Everyone was laughing. Everyone was happy. There was no one criticizing the food. No one making a scene. No one crying in the bathroom because they didn't get enough attention. It was the family I had chosen. And it was perfect. It has been 3 years since the wedding. We live in a beautiful house now, not too big, but filled with light. We have a dog, a golden retriever named Barnaby who sleeps on the rug while I work. I started my own graphic design firm. I didn't want to work for anyone else ever again. I wanted to be in control of my own destiny. Marcus helped me with the business side, but the creative work is all mine. I have 5 employees now. I treat them well. I make sure they feel seen. And the money, the trust fund, I stuck to my plan. I didn't keep a dime of it. I set up a scholarship fund for first-generation college students, girls who, like me, had to pay their own way, who worked night shifts while studying, who had no safety net. We called it the Visible Foundation. Every year, I get to read the application essays. I read stories of young women who are fighting to build a life, who are ignored by their families or society. And every year, I get to call 5 of them and tell them that their tuition is paid in full. Hearing their screams of joy, their sobbing gratitude, that heals me more than anything else could. It turns my pain into purpose. As for my family, I hear things through the grapevine. I haven't spoken to them since the phone call. My aunt told me that Brianna got married 6 months after I did. It was a rush job to a guy she barely knew. My parents spent a fortune on the royal wedding she wanted. It was huge, flashy, and expensive. They divorced 8 months later. Apparently, the wedding debt caused a huge strain on my parents. My dad had to delay his retirement. My mom is bitter. They blame the ex-husband. They blame the economy. They probably blame me. They are still trapped in their cycle of shallow appearances and deep unhappiness. They are still trying to fill a bucket with a hole in the bottom. Sometimes, I feel a pang of sadness for them. It must be exhausting to live like that. But I don't feel the need to fix it anymore. Marcus and I are expecting our first baby in the spring, a little girl. We talk about her often. We talk about how we will raise her. We will not raise her to be easy. We will not raise her to be quiet. We will raise her to be loud, to be messy, to be sensitive, to be strong. If she cries, we will listen. If she succeeds, we will cheer. I will never tell her she is fine just to shut her up. I will ask her how she feels and I will wait for the answer. I am sitting on my back porch right now, writing this. The sun is setting. Marcus is inside cooking dinner. I can smell garlic and basil. Barnaby is chasing a butterfly in the yard. I am not the invisible daughter anymore. I am a wife. I am a business owner. I am a mother-to-be. But mostly I am Ava. And for the first time in my life, that is enough. The world eventually sees what families tried to ignore. And sometimes the best revenge isn't screaming or fighting. It's just being happy. Quietly, truly, untouchably happy.